Are you wanting a haircut, trim, or just a fresh new look in general? Look no further than The Shop. Located in Lehigh Acres, Florida, their friendly and chill atmosphere makes you feel right at home while getting your favorite hairstyle that suits you. Check them out on Google today, that's DASHOP, for more information and see what they can do for you. The Shop is a proud supporter of The Real Paul Show.
Welcome to another episode of The Real Paul Show, where artists share their heart about their passion for what they do. Take a moment to look over the episode's description to familiarize yourself with available links, as they will be mentioned throughout the podcast. And now, here's your host, Paul Weiss.
Hey, it's time again for another episode of The Real Paul Show. Thank you very much for being here and listening. I appreciate your support. I just want to take a moment to thank Anchor FM for their services and providing a place for me to broadcast from, and a beautiful app that allows me to edit these podcasts and share them with you guys. I would also like to thank Scotty DeYoung for doing my ad reads, the one that you heard at the beginning of this podcast. And I would like to thank Eddie Lam for being on the show. In this episode, we talk with Eddie some more about his music and his heart in community. And we also speak a little bit on open mic nights again. And in this part 2 of the podcast, we talk about how he met a pretty big named guy. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, relax, and let's listen. Who is your major influence both on piano and vocals?
So my influences on piano are definitely Elton John.
Okay.
Elton John, a little bit of Billy Joel, and dare I say, maybe a little bit of John Tesh. I'm not too sure how many people remember that John Tesh is a fantastic piano player, composer, and everything. So those are part of my influences. Now, for vocals, you'd be surprised. I mean, with me being cover bands for so many years and the music I grew up with, some people say I have the voice of Kurt Cobain when I do Nirvana songs, but I've also been told I am like an Asian Jerry Cantrell if you're into Alice in Chains, and maybe a little bit of Lane Staley in there in that sense too. Not a lot of people would know this unless you've seen my gigs, but I also do enjoy the occasional Frank Sinatra, because when I do sing some Frank Sinatra stuff on karaoke, I can do a little bit of a good impression of him. But lately, I've also been trying to do a little bit of impression of Elvis. It's a little bit hard, when you're much younger, right? But of course, with me being a little bit older now, my voice has gotten a little bit deeper. I could probably say I was able to pull off a little bit of an Elvis impersonation right there.
Yeah, I get it. I get the fun part. And I've never really performed live, except for I have performed at an open mic night in LA, California.
Yes. Wow.
And it was scary, but I enjoyed it. It was fun.
That's awesome.
You, like you say, you connect with the people there, and whether or not it was that good or not, doesn't matter. Everybody clapped, everybody loved it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was such a good feeling too. One of the things my wife always encouraged me to do whenever we go on a vacation to a different town, she always suggested, hey, we should check out an open mic night so you can get your music out there, play in front of a different audience, and meet new people. And I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I should probably do that. It's not the same as touring, but it's some form of touring.
Right. I mean, that's pretty cool. I wonder if any of the big names have ever done that, gone somewhere where maybe they're not so well known and gone to an open. That would be funny to find out.
Oh, I would not be surprised. But didn't didn't Dolly Parton do something where she went to some pub in Ireland, and there are these musicians that know her stuff, and then Dolly Parton just asked, hey, or they invite her, they're like, hey, Dolly, you want to do a song with us? And she's like, yeah, how about this song? And they're like, yeah, we know that song, and they just played together. And yeah, I think this is in Ireland, if I'm not mistaken, but true story.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And now it's time to take a quick little break.
If you enjoyed what you heard here, please consider supporting the podcast with a monthly contribution. To contribute, just click the link in the description of this episode or visit The Real Paul Show on Anchor FM.
So I've heard that you play in a all-Asian rock band called Cry of Silence.
Yes, that's right.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Cry of Silence is my project where we write our own songs, original songs, when I want to take a break from playing covers. But yeah, it's a project I'm really proud to have run for quite a good number of years. But yeah, so our genres, we combine lots of like punk, grunge, new metal, emo music, all in one mix. And people have compares to like Green Day mixed with Alice in Chains, mixed with like 3 Days Grace, and so it's a little bit all over the map, but that's the beauty of it. Our first album we released was called Influence, and the reason why it was called that is because we used that album to show our musical influences, basically. And of course, a lot of our songs do have a positive message as well, so that's why it's called Influence as well. And then our second release, this was released like in 2018, is called Community. And the reason why it's called that is because that EP is a salute to our local music scene. And so we've written songs about people that we know. So we have this one single called A Busker Song, and it's about friends of ours who used to be buskers in downtown Vancouver, and they had lots of stories to tell, their hardships, their fun moments, all that good stuff. And the reason why we also call it a community as well is because we actually have a couple of songs that featured people doing gang vocals with us. And these are people that we know from the local scene. And so that's why it's also called Community. And the third reason why it's called that too is because we had different people produce our stuff. Not like some of the stuff on that EP we produced ourselves, but there's a few others that had different producers on there. So we wanted to showcase their talent as well. And now we're at this point where now we're just releasing singles. We decided to just go that route, but back in 2020, we released a song called Don't Want You Near. And this is actually based on a true story about somebody. So lyrically, it's about a girl who actually got stood up on New Year's Eve by a guy who's supposed to take her out to New Year's Eve. And she catches him cheating, hanging out with a bunch of girls at a different bar. And so she gets mad at him and all that stuff. So that's the premise of the song. And very relatable too when you think about it. And then we also have our own cover of Sunglasses at Night, which you can find on YouTube too, which is a Canadian classic. Not many people know that it's a Canadian song. And then we also have an acoustic version of Don't Want You Near, which features, for those who love this kind of music, features Kellen Quinn from a band called Sleeping with Sirens. And they're one of the most well-known emo-core bands for the last 10 plus years. And I'm just so proud to have a big star like Kellen to be featured on that song. And I'm also just so honored that he was willing to work with not so well-known bands, but right. I know he does care because everyone has started somewhere, even the biggest stars in the world. And that was yeah. It says a lot about how much he cares about other musicians' well-being, and I think that's awesome. Our most recent releases that we did, we teamed up with a good friend of ours named Thomas Beckman, who is from Vancouver, Canada as well, a really long-time friend of mine. And he is one of the best viola players locally. And so I had this idea of writing an instrumental tune where we can showcase his viola playing. And so we have a two-parter instrumental track called Definition, which is on Spotify, parts 1 and parts 2. If you go to our YouTube channel for Cry of Silence, you can find part 1 and part 2 combined together. But It's really fun. It's like an instrumental salute to both like anime instrumental soundtracks. There's a lot of piano emphasized in this one, but then the second half is a tribute to 80s montage music as well. If you've watched Rocky, Bloodsport, Karate Kid, all those things, you always hear these background like piano montage rock, heavy guitar music. So that is our salute to that type of soundtracks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit more about your cover bands?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, so my cover band is called The Naturals. So we were originally known for hosting live band karaoke in Vancouver, and so we have started off playing at local restaurants, and then later on it carried out into nightclubs in downtown, and then we played in pubs and stuff too. But then after that, we decided to go the route of playing for corporate gigs, and so Christmas parties and conferences and whatnot, and playing for weddings too. And honestly, it was such a fun experience just to work with a variety of different kinds of clientele, and just knowing that we're giving people that rock star experience, right? To come up and sing their favorite songs, but this time with a live band. I mean, how often do you get that opportunity, right? Because this kind of concept, you feel like, oh, well, you can probably experience that in Las Vegas, right? In Las Vegas, New York City, those big time entertainment cities. But we decided, hey, why not do something like this here in Vancouver? And the concept with live band karaoke started off with a friend of ours who was a bartender, and he was watching me and my friend Jared, who also plays drums. He saw us playing, and he said, hey, you guys know so many songs. You guys should do something like live band karaoke like they do in Vegas. And we looked at each other and we're like, you know what? That's actually not too bad of an idea. Let's give it a shot. And it's been such a great experience since then. But just knowing how much growth it has and all the adventures we've been through too. We even have played out of town shows, believe it or not. We would even go out of town where we would be playing the wedding on one day, and then we'd be playing a fundraising event the other day. And it felt like it's like pretty much like a mini tour. Not really much of a tour, but I would consider it as a very mini tour. It's still playing out of town regardless, and it was such a fun time doing that. But I think the main thing that really, again, circles back to what I was saying, right? Like live band karaoke has really brought people together. Again, it's all about the community side of things as well. And so I'm just so glad to have experienced that kind of thing. But I know with the pandemic right now, of course, we're trying to be very cautious with the whole restrictions on, singing, because, everyone's sharing microphones and whatnot. But regardless, I think just knowing what we've actually done locally here, and of course beyond our local town, doing this kind of gig, it really created quite the buzz, and I'm just so glad that this is something that that we hope can continue again in the near future.
And now it's time to take a quick little break.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on other listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place, and best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
So you started with just you singing at some point, and then you're like, okay, let's do a band, right? And then whatever gave you the crazy idea to do more than one band?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So being in multiple projects was quite an experience for me. At one point, I was in a bunch. Like, we're talking like 4 or 5 different projects. But mind you, during that time, I was finishing up school, right? So I didn't have to worry about any other obligations except for my studies. But other than that, I had some time on my hands to work with different friends of mine in the local scene. But of course, when things were starting to get really busy for me, I had to make some sacrifices, right? So, of course, I had to call it quits to some of the artists I've collaborated with. And in this one other band I used to be in, we were writing songs together. Unfortunately, we broke up. So it sucks, but at the same time, it was a blessing, because that gives me a lot more time to concentrate on my other projects, to concentrate on Cry of Silence and other cover projects that I play in. I'm at the point now where I know which projects speak true to me, which ones are which ones I know I can commit a lot of time to. Of course, with Cry of Silence, that's my main project because that's my outlet of writing songs and composing original material. Now, with the Naturals, for live band karaoke, or just playing with the Naturals as a band itself, it just gives me that outlet to play our personal favorite hits. Now, of course, when I'm not playing the Naturals, when that's not happening, then of course I just do my own thing too. So I can do the Eddie Lam All-Star Band, right? So where I have like different friends of mine performing with me at certain gigs, and that's why I call it the All-Star Band, because it features all my different friends from either from both Cry of Silence and the Naturals, or at least I can get some special guests from other bands from the local scene. So that's how I call it the Eddie Lam All-Star Band, because, to me, they're stars in my eyes, right? They're great people to be around with. But playing solo, though, that's another one, too, for myself where, if I want to do gigs where I'm playing piano in the background as background music, or, of course, like I said before about hosting piano karaoke night, that's also my own personal thing as well, my own personal project that I'm really, really proud of. But even if I'm if I'm just busking outside too, just bring out my guitar, my portable speakers, and just play music outside just for a couple of hours. That's always a fun time as well. See, one of the things I always had to realize that in order for me to get myself out there, I had to diversify. And this is one of the things I talked to one of my mentors about too. He says what he was fascinated about the fact is that he said that's what you should be doing. He said you need to diversify a lot more and get yourself out there, right? So because if you're just a one-trick pony, then pretty much you're not going to evolve from there. So which makes sense about that. And so with me playing as a solo piano player at weddings or lounges for background cocktail hours, or if I'm playing in a rock band, or maybe I'm doing session work with a few friends here and there, playing bass or guitar or whatever. I think that honestly, it teaches me a lot about different kinds of musical techniques, musical influences that are out there too, right? Because if I'm known as the guy that just sticks with one thing and one thing only, then I always feel it's not going to help me grow as an individual. So with me learning different things, it gave me different things like adaptability, flexibility, basically, and just it helps me gain knowledge of different kinds of genres that are out there.
So you've mentioned live band karaoke and you've mentioned piano karaoke. Do you have one that you favor more than the other?
Ooh, I hope my bandmates don't kill me on this one, but I do enjoy hosting piano karaoke night a whole lot. The only reason why I'm saying that is because you don't have to worry about setting up all the equipment, right? There's a lot more to set up with bands. Now, I love my bandmates to death, don't get me wrong, right? But the thing about piano karaoke night for me is that there is a lot more room for flexibility. There's a lot more room for adding more content, even if it's at a short time's notice. And with bands, you have to coordinate things ahead of time, right? Mm-hmm. But with piano karaoke night, there's a lot more room to make quick adjustments where necessary. And with me too, I have way more control on the duties of hosting, right? Because with live band karaoke, one of our bandmates, he is our host and our lead singer too as well. But with me at piano karaoke night, I do all that stuff. But the cool thing about that is too, it's I already know what's going on, which singer goes on when, and also know how much money is coming in through admissions, and just overall too. I would even say that we have a bit more variety of songs on piano karaoke night. With bands, you could do a variety of songs too, but with piano karaoke, there's so much more you can do with it, musically speaking. And so that's the reason why I would prefer to host that a lot more if I was to do it on a consistent basis. But of course, like I said, with the playing the band, it teaches you a lot about teamwork, which is a great life skill that everybody should have. But at the same time, though, to do it on a weekly basis, that can be a little bit tricky, right? And it can be very tiring because it's a lot of work. But with piano karaoke night, yes, like I said, a lot more room to make things happen, and less stuff to worry about. But there's a lot more time and emphasis for the musicality side of things too.
Is there any music that's about to come out or anything like that at this point?
Yeah.
Or
okay, yeah. So if you tune into my YouTube channel, which is Eddie Lam Music, you can definitely check out some covers I've done, and I will be releasing more later on this year in 2022. But make sure you follow my band, Cry of Silence, as well. We have a YouTube channel on there as well. Official website is cryofsilencemusic.com. You can find our music on there on Spotify, on Bandcamp, and all other streaming platforms. Make sure you tell your friends and family about our music, because if you guys enjoy solid rock music, we are there to provide that for you.
Since you've been doing this for a little while now with music,
Yeah.
what would be your number one suggestion to help motivate someone who's just starting and struggling?
If I were to advise somebody who is in need of a motivation, who's struggling to do music, I'm just going to say it straight up. Don't worry about the fact that you're inexperienced. Don't worry about the fact that you're too young or you're too old or you're in this stage of your life. If you have that desire to learn music, take your time. A lot of things don't happen overnight. You don't become the most skilled person overnight. All it takes is a lot of patience, a lot of practice, but it also just takes a lot of time. You got to put a lot of time and effort into it. If you want to get good at something, you have to put the time and effort to do it. I may sound like a drill sergeant to tell you that, but there is a lot of truth into that. 100% truth, because this is how everybody does get better. Ignore the child prodigies that are out there. They're great, talented people as well, for sure, but that's them. Your journey is very, very different. Everyone's journey is very different. I think the most important thing is to celebrate progress. Even if it's just the little things. If you've nailed that C scale, the C major scale, that's awesome. If you know how to play the E chord and switch it to the A chord, that's progress right there. Worth celebrating. Make sure you keep track of that progress and be happy about it and just keep going.
From the streaming side of things, we had talked about that. What is your advice or your thoughts on just the bombardment of, at a certain point when you start getting more clout on the platform, it is always going to have trolls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've seen some people who like get totally offended by it, and I've seen the opposite end where I love it. I was rolling laughing when this one girl took all her troll comments and wrote a song with the lyrics made up of the troll comments.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Oh, that is perfect. I'll have to share the video to you if I can find it.
Oh, you're going to have to. Yes, please do. Yeah.
But,
okay.
What would you say to someone who may be getting discouraged by it? You know, I'm just curious. What would you say to them?
Sure. So if you guys are struggling with trolls, here's a little advice for you. Ignore them, because they are not worth your attention. Do not feed them, because if you feed them, they'll keep going. But if you take away that food source, they will not bother you ever again. Now, if you are a very witty comedic type person, if you can think of the most wittiest comeback, then so be it.
Okay, now we're going to take a quick little break to let you hear how you can be a part of the show.
If you'd like to record a question or comment to possibly be aired on a future podcast, just click the message link in the description of this episode or visit the Real Paul Show podcast on Anchor FM.
So you mentioned Kellen Quinn earlier, and I'm just curious, how did you meet him?
So, funny story about that. So I met Sleeping with Sirens back in 2018. Now, one of my good friends from the local scene, his previous band called Chase Your Words, they connected with Kellen Quinn over the internet, and then they ended up doing an EP produced by him. Now, fast forward to 2018, Sleeping with Sirens came to Vancouver for the very first time in their life, and they did a show in downtown Vancouver. After the show was over, I decided to just go to the nearest pub and just grab a couple of drinks. And then what happened was my friend's girlfriend at the time, she tapped on my shoulder. She's like, hey. I was like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? Right? And she's like, oh, well, get this. We're actually hanging out with Sleeping with Sirens. I'm like, no way. Seriously? She's like, yeah. So we went to the other side of the pub, and here they were, all hanging out, playing darts, and having beers, and just having one good time. And so I was like, oh, I didn't know you guys were here, right? And my friends from Chase Worst were like, yeah, hey, how's it going? That's awesome, man. They introduced me to Kellen, and Kellen and I, we just started talking, and we bonded pretty well together ever since. We were just talking about music. Like I said, we just kept playing darts too, and he's really good at darts, just so you know. Yeah, we were just talking about music. I was telling him about the stuff I was doing. And yeah, like that was pretty much it. We stayed in touch on Instagram. And then, of course, like after that, what happened was Helen and I, we actually ended up being on the roster of this website, this really cool website called Featured X. And with Featured X, the way that the website works is that you can actually hire certain musicians, including some big name stars in like the hardcore scene, to be featured on your song. So you just pay the fee that the artist charges, and they'll be on there, right? They'll be on your song if they accept it. And so Kellen Quinn, of course, is on there because with him being, the big star that he is, you can actually hire him to be on your feature as well. I myself am also on there because the staff reviewed the fact that because I had an on-growing following on TikTok, right, they decided to put me on the roster. So I was really happy about that. But anyways, but going back with Kellen, so Kellen announced that he had a good deal on hiring him to be featured on any of your songs. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I should go for it, right? And so here I am, I hired Kellen, and I said, here, Kellen, this is the song I'm working on. Would you like to be featured on this one? He accepted. He sent me his vocal tracks, and believe it or not, it was an acoustic version of our song Don't Want You Near, our single. And he not only sang the chorus with me, but for the second verse, he actually put in his own lyrical spin into it. So he rewrote verse 2, but just knowing how he did it, it was just amazing, and I was just like, Kellen's a freaking songwriting genius, and I was so glad to have him collaborate with me on this. So I did all the other stuff, so I pretty much, I did all, like the mixing, the EQ, right, all the editing stuff, right, compiling everything else together, just launched it, and yeah, and the rest is all history. And I know that the fun part about this whole thing is that, when Kellen shared it, I started gaining some followers because of his fan base. And so some of his followers end up joining my Instagram too. So they follow me on there, and the song's been streamed on Spotify a good number of times as well. So I was really, really happy about that. And Kellen and I are still talking, and yeah, you know what? I would love to do more songs with him in the future, and hopefully I can collaborate with other big name artists in the rock scene.
That would be awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It just goes to show you, just you never know when a moment like that'll happen.
Exactly.
And it's just a matter of putting yourself out there and being willing to, what my motto is, do what you love with no regrets.
Exactly.
Just do it. Just get out there and do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Eddie, it's winding down now, and I think we're done with this interview. So if you would like, go ahead and share how we can find you on the internet.
If you guys want to give me a follow, I have an official website. It's eddielammusic.ca. EDDIELAM music. And all my social media platforms. You can find me on TikTok, Eddie Lam Music. Same deal with YouTube, on Twitch, and Instagram. You can add me on all those platforms, Eddie Lam Music. I hope to connect with you guys on there.
Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
If you ever want to be back on the show, doors open, and I would be glad to have you back, man.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that so much.
Before we go, I have something special to mention. There is a young lady on TikTok that I met this last week that is in need of some followers. And if you have TikTok and you love music as much as I do, I invite you to check her out. Her TikTok will be linked in this podcast description. Her name is Constant Music. That is Konstant Music. Again, that link will be in the description of this podcast.
Thank you for listening to yet another episode of The Real Paul Show. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. And remember, do what you love with no regrets.